Hi everybody, it's Lisa here from Holistic Health by Lisa Moan. I'm here for my regular 7:30 Monday night Facebook Live. Thank you for joining me. And tonight I'll be talking about diet and ADHD, fact or fiction. So is there any truth behind the speculation that diet can help with ADHD? That's what I'll be talking about tonight. And next week, my Facebook Live will be about childhood anxiety. So what you can do if your child is anxious and some underlying causes why your child might be feeling anxiety. So that's next week. So please join me for that. That will be my last Facebook Live before Christmas. And this is really my last week in clinic before Christmas. So if you did want to get anything started with testing or treatment, there's some availability this week, and then that's it really until the middle of January. So go ahead and get in touch if you want to get that started. So ADHD, there's been an explosion in ADHD diagnosis in the last sort of 30 years or so. And if you think about the way that we live today, it bears no resemblance at all to how we lived 200 years ago. So we've got artificial lights, we've got artificial food, we've got an abundance of food, we've got devices, it's just, if someone from 200 years ago came along, they wouldn't even know we're the same species. So there's no surprise that children are ending up with attention issues, hyperactivity issues, because the world we live in is just so overly stimulating, and the food that we eat is so different than it used to be. But there's also things that we can do to help with all those issues. So specifically with food and behaviour, because we could go down the path of devices and sleep and circadian rhythms and lights. That's a whole other Facebook Live for another night. But tonight, just talking about food specifically, there's a few areas that we're going to talk about. And the first is hypoglycemia. So that is when your blood sugar drops too low. So you might have felt this yourself. If you've gone too long between meals, you might get very hangry all of a sudden, and you just need to eat, and that kind of settles down your mood. So this can happen quite frequently for children as well, except instead of getting hangry and getting aggressive, they might just get like spaced out and very vague, and very a lack of attention. So you might say an attention deficit. So what children need to do in that situation is they need to make sure that their blood sugar is more stable through the day. And if you're eating a lot of refined carbohydrates, so lots of white bread, white pasta, white rice, the children's blood sugar will be going up and down all day, and they'll be hyperactive when they've got loads of sugar and energy in their system, and then really vague and spaced out and difficult to concentrate when the blood sugar drops low. So to smooth that out, you really need to reduce the refined carbohydrates, and you need to make sure that they're eating protein and fat every time they have a snack, which should be every 2 to 3 hours. So instead of having, a breakfast of white bread, a lunch of a Vegemite sandwich, and dinner with pasta, they need to be having something like a boiled egg with avocado for breakfast, then some carrot sticks with hummus for morning tea, and then maybe a sourdough sandwich with some meat in it at lunchtime, and some kefir in the afternoon. So all those meals and snacks have protein, they've got fat, they do have carbohydrates, but it's a very slow releasing energy type of carbohydrates. So you need to give them regular food and regular snacks, but a snack doesn't necessarily weigh 22 grams and come in a little packet. A snack is just real food in a smaller quantity. So make sure whenever you're giving them a snack that it's real food. So something like a boiled egg, or my kids are currently loving like apple and peanut butter or banana and peanut butter. So that's perfect. You've got your carbohydrates in the fruit, but then you're kind of tempering the glycemic response by adding the peanut butter. And the next issue is sugar. So, years ago, I think people ate, I don't know what the statistic is, but basically children, by the time a child is 8, they've eaten enough sugar for their whole lifetime, which is why children are now getting type 2 diabetes and all these other ill effects from eating too much sugar. So studies show that hyperactive children have more sugar in their diet than non-hyperactive children. So there is definitely a link. And if you really want to get to the bottom, get to the root cause of your child's behaviour and their ADHD symptoms, the first thing you would do would be cut out sugar. So the fizzy drinks, the lollies, the sports drinks, the sugary breakfast cereals, that all absolutely has to go. Because that has an effect on their dopamine receptors as well, which again is another discussion on neurotransmitters. But there's many reasons why sugar is implicated in ADHD. So cut out the sugary snacks and the sugary foods and replace it with real foods. So, nuts, seeds, just real food, like I mentioned earlier. And then some children have sensitivities to the additives that are in food. So the colours and the flavours. And you might have 3 children and 2 of them could eat like blue lollies all day long and be perfectly fine. And the other child just has to look at a blue lolly and go crazy. So we're all different and we all deal with food additives very differently. So another great thing to do is just to cut out the artificial colours, flavours and preservatives. And in the UK, they even put warning labels on their food that contain some artificial colours. A warning label say this might affect your child's behaviour negatively. Unfortunately, our government, as we've seen, is lacking quite a lot of leadership and hasn't made that step of alerting people to this risk. So we need to take it upon ourselves to not feed our children artificial colours, flavours and preservatives. If your child actually has a food allergy, so that's a bit different. The food sensitivities are to the artificial colours, flavours, preservatives, but your child might have a delayed response food allergy to something like eggs. So although eggs are a super healthy food, as I've just mentioned, if they don't agree with your child, they could actually disrupt their behaviour. So the most common foods that this can be an issue for are wheat, dairy, eggs, peanut, corn and soy. So corn in particular is a bit of a red herring here. I find quite a lot of children are quite sensitive to corn. So the popcorn, sweet corn, all those foods can actually be irritating their nervous system and causing some issues with the behaviour. So as I've talked a lot about recently, you can do a blood test to find out if they've got this allergy, or you can do an elimination diet and cut out those 6 most common culprits, the wheat, the dairy, the eggs, the soy, the corn, and work out what is a trigger for your child. And that can be quite a pleasant process because you get to experiment with new foods. So sometimes going on a restrictive diet is actually really good because you have to try different foods and then your child tries foods that they've maybe never had before. And then there's a food chemical called salicylates, and try to say that after 3 gin and tonics. But some foods are really high in salicylates and they're really healthy foods. So things like tomatoes and strawberries are really high in salicylates. So if your child really craves tomatoes and then goes a little bit crazy once they eat them, or the same with strawberries, it could be the salicylates. And because salicylates are in really healthy foods, we don't want to say just don't eat salicylates. We need to improve the child's biochemical pathways and improve their gut health so that they can eat salicylates without the problems. And what salicylates will do in sensitive children is they'll cause hyperactivity, they'll cause irritability and foggy thinking. And the other real telltale sign is it causes head banging. So banging your head against the ground is a classic sign of salicylates. It is actually a sign of some food colourings as well, the head banging. So it's annatto, I think, causes the head banging, which is actually a natural colour. And just because it's natural, it doesn't mean that it's safe in those quantities. So those are sort of some food pointers for what to do if your child is diagnosed with ADHD or you think they possibly might have ADHD. But then, as well as making the dietary changes, you can add some supplements in as well to kind of speed your progress. So something like fish oil is great for children who don't tolerate salicylates very well because it improves that biochemical pathway so that they can have the high salicylate foods again. But of course, It has to be a really high quality fish oil without mercury contamination. So the cheap, 1,000 capsules for $10 in Woolies, that's not good fish oil. That probably has mercury contamination, which is going to cause even more ADHD symptoms. So you need the really expensive, really high quality fish oil with no colours and no flavours, because your child might be sensitive to those as well. So that's one really good one. And there's heaps of research about ADHD and fish oil. It's probably one of the most studied supplements when it comes to ADHD. Then just a general multivitamin can be very helpful, but again, a really high quality one with high dosages of all the nutrients and no artificial colours, flavours, preservatives or sugar. So definitely not gummies, more like just a really high quality one that's not going to be as kid friendly, but as a parent you can find a way to get supplements into your child. There's always a way. And magnesium as well is very good because it's really, really calming. So especially for like hyperactive children, magnesium can calm them down, helps them sleep at night, and just kind of soothes them. So you can take a supplement, you can rub it on transdermally like a spray or a lotion. You can put it in the bath like magnesium chloride or magnesium sulfate, which is Epsom salts. Or you can just really make a really good effort to improve magnesium in their diet. So things like almonds, cashews, eggs, figs and leafy greens, preferably organic, so they've got the maximum level of magnesium. So any questions about any of this, please just pop them below and I'll do my best to answer them. And zinc is another one. Zinc makes you think. Remember that. So zinc again has research to show that it works really, really well either on its own, or if your child is medicated on something like Ritalin, zinc will improve the results and reduce the side effects of that. So whether you decide to medicate or not, some of these interventions are still going to be really helpful and make the medication work better. And then probiotics are good because they improve gut health, and there's a huge connection between brain health and gut health. So anything that you can do to improve your child's gut health will have a positive effect on their behaviour and their sleep and their mood and all those things. So that's it for tonight on diet and ADHD. So again, if you've got any questions later tonight, just pop them down. I'll do my best to answer them. And next week I'll be discussing anxiety in children and what nutritional measures you can take to reduce anxiety in your child. So if you've got any questions beforehand about that and you want me to make sure I answer them during that live, let me know. As I said, this week is my last week in clinic, so if you need an appointment, please book in before Saturday. I am working next week, but that's already fully booked. And this is my last Facebook Live for this decade, I guess. And I'll be back early 2020 with a whole new range of topics. So if there's anything you would like me to specifically discuss next year, let me know, because I'll be putting together a bit of a plan when I'm on holidays, I assume. So thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.